It's that time of year. Classes in session. Let's talk about classes on Casting Actors Cast.
This is Casting Actors Cast. Each episode takes you behind the scenes and answers your questions about the business of show. Please don't forget to subscribe and like wherever you get your podcasts. Now here's the host of Casting Actors Cast, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello. And welcome to another episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. How are you? I hope you're having a good day today. It's that time of year where we start talking about classes, and so I will call this episode Class is in Session, because I think it's important that you know what are the do's and the don'ts, what are the positive, and even what are some of the negative effects of taking a class. What are the checklist pieces of information that you could use in order to determine which classes are best for you when it comes to being an actor in the business. So stay tuned for that. This is that moment in the podcast where I want to say thank you so very, very much for listening to Casting Actors Cast. If you're new to Casting Actors Cast, just joining us, welcome. So glad that you're here. We've been having a great time here on Casting Actors Cast, and we're well over 14,000 downloads of the Podio. What I mean by Podio, it's a podcast that's also a video. And we're on YouTube as well, the channel called the Casting Actors Cast channel. Pretty clever, huh? Not too shabby. Anyway, we've been doing these podcasts for about a year and a half, and it's very exciting that people from all over the world are tuning in and sending messages and giving me some suggestions and questions and feedback, and I really, really do appreciate it. You can do that too by going to castingactorscast.com. That's castingactorscast, all one word, .com. And filling out the information form will also get you access to a free downloadable PDF 100-page book called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. It's actually a workbook, and it's 100-page PDF. You can also get it at Amazon and all those online places, but this is absolutely free. It's all about being a voice actor, and it's something I wrote about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's in a couple of curriculums at a few universities now, and it's yours absolutely free just by going to the channel and filling out that web form. By the way, the reason I want some information is I always like knowing that there are people out there listening to the podcast, so it really does help me a tremendous amount if you just let me know that you're out there and listening. But I also see by the numbers that the podcast is doing really, really well, and I couldn't be more grateful. That's the most important thing I could say. Thank you so much. So we did a podcast early on calling it Class Act, and we talked a little bit about classes, but I wanted to go into depth a little bit further, this being the time of year when a lot of students are already enrolled, or maybe they're starting their work at university in their acting departments, their BFA, their MFA, or professional training programs of acting. You've already made those decisions. Maybe you're already just starting, or maybe you've enrolled and haven't quite started yet, or maybe you're thinking about starting. I wanted to make this a way to share some thoughts I had about classes in general and some criteria that you can use to be helpful to you when you start looking at all of the availabilities of classes and teachers that are out there. One thing that I think is pretty important is to, first and foremost, make sure you check out all of the teachers and all of the classes that are available in your area. Now, in New York, of course, you can imagine, in Los Angeles as well, there's just this explosion of classes and opportunities for actors to enroll. And I find it really fascinating that sometimes actors will use kind of bizarre criteria to make the choice about enrolling in the class. Sometimes I hear about actors saying, well, my best friend enrolled in this class and had a really great time. Well, that's fine, and I'm sure that that's, a reason to want to enroll in a class. But I think as the CEO of your own company, which is what you are as an actor, even if you're still a student, you still need to develop those professional habits. And one of those habits is to make sure you do your research and finding out what classes are best for you. And the way that you can do that is to really evaluate what areas are lacking in the training that you've already had. Maybe you've had zero training at all. Maybe you've just decided that you want to be an actor and you're not quite sure how to go about it. Cool. That's great. Congratulations on making that decision. So obviously you want to take an entry level or a beginning acting class. That way it'll give you an overview. Maybe you'll get a taste of what it is to do monologue work, maybe some scene work. And as you grow in that particular class, it might be really great that the next class is the advanced acting class or the intermediate acting class. Whatever it is, know that being a good evaluator of what your needs are first will help shape and define the decision as you look into all the classes that are available out there. Now, there are some classes, for example, that are film and television oriented classes. If you've had some professional stage training and you think that, gosh, I'd like to get more film and television work, maybe you would like to think about going into a film and television class. That's great. That would be an obvious choice that you would want to make. If you've had no previous film or television class experience, then consider going into an entry level. That just makes kind of sense, right? But here's the thing. There are so many classes and choices out there. What classes are you going to take that are going to help you? What's your checklist for finding the right class for you? That's what I want to talk about. Evaluating very, very, you need to be a little hard on yourself, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that is that you really need to take a really hard look at where you are. Don't let your ego get into the decision-making process. Taking a beginning television movie acting class is great, but who is that teacher? Who is actually teaching you? Now, I know that sometimes actors get excited about the teacher because they've had a lot of really great television and film experience. So you're learning from somebody who's been in the trenches doing it. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely true that not necessarily the best tennis player makes the best tennis teacher. What I'm trying to say is, maybe they've had some success on their own and in their own career, but that does not necessarily make them an excellent teacher for you. So be very objective about what your needs are versus who the instructor is. First and foremost, you should be able to audit any class. Any institution training program should allow you to sit in and observe a class. That would be a great, smart first thing to do. And if you're seeing what's going on in class is really interesting and you find it useful, and maybe you connect with that teacher in a way, maybe they're saying the things in a way that you find really useful and you can connect with, that's a good match. Conversely, sometimes you'll be in a class and you'll feel like it's kind of over your head, that maybe you don't quite understand the teacher. Maybe you feel a little bit intimidated. I don't believe that there's any class that should make you feel intimidated. I just don't. I think that there are things to learn, and that's a different thing than what I'm talking about, which is our teachers who are trying to hold something over you. Like, if you were in my class, you would learn this, 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 and this. I don't know if that's really a useful thing. And frankly, and this is my opinion only, I think that there are a lot of teachers out there who are running their own schools even, that have this sort of Svengali approach, that it's either my way or the highway, or that they try to manipulate you in such a way as to tear you down in order to build you up kind of philosophy. And I don't know if that's necessarily the best or healthiest thing. Frankly, I don't believe it is, if you want to know my feeling about it. But I also think it's incumbent upon you to make sure you do your research and make sure that this isn't a situation where you're being manipulated in any way. In no way should you ever feel uncomfortable in an acting class. An acting class is not a therapy session. An acting class is not exploring your sexuality session. An acting class is not putting you in a position where you should feel uncomfortable. Conversely, It's really important that an acting class challenge you, that knows you and your work well enough to call you on the stuff that you could improve on, to give you fair feedback and evaluation. You know, I think that there happens to be an art form to giving good feedback. I think feedback in a class environment has to be supportive and at the same time be able to say and communicate certain concepts that not only get you thinking, but that help you to incorporate those concepts into your work in a class. So there's all kinds of horror stories out there about teachers shaming and humiliating and, all kinds of nonsense that I think were a little more advanced than that. Maybe those were stories back a long time ago when we had these very, famous egoed out acting teachers. And maybe there was some benefit to that, calling you on your stuff so that you would break bad habits. But I just don't think that that has a place in today's contemporary acting. I don't think that that Svengali sort of holding their ego over your head because they know it all and you don't is useful for the actor in training today. I hope that that makes sense. I hope I'm not kind of going off too much on a tangent here, but I think it behooves you to know that there are so many excellent acting class and acting opportunities. But here's the long and the short of that. Make sure you do your research. Get feedback from other people. How do you find this class? You do have to audit. You do have to check out the class, the reputation of that teacher. How long have they been doing this? Sometimes, too long is too long sometimes. Maybe some methodology that worked 25 or 30 years ago is not really that helpful today. A lot has changed in the business. The technology alone is enough to warrant taking classes that feel like the person is involved in what's happening now, not necessarily a technique that was successful 25 or 30 years ago. I hope that makes sense. I mean, if you're in a college or university training program, you probably vetted some of those teachers. You probably figured out that the facility was really, really good, that there were some really great teachers that you responded to. At least I hope that that's what the situation is. If not, take another look. I'm not asking you to don't go to college. I am saying that make sure that you connect with those people that you connect with in a positive way, in a reinforcing way, in a way that's going to help you feel that the choices that you make are good ones, that are, again, supportive of your work. Now, again, I have to vacillate back and forth here. You're not supposed to necessarily just love your acting teacher. Your acting teacher there is to challenge you, is to get you to explore areas of your acting that you might not have even thought of. They're there to really help shape and develop your technique so that no matter what things you are auditioning for or what your goals are as an actor, whether you want to be a theater or a film or a television actor, whatever that is, maybe you don't know yet, that teacher should be able to help shape and goal orient you into the right path. That's the best kind of teacher there is. But like I said, they don't have to be your best friend. They don't have to be a mentor. Now, having said that, I know that there are a lot of very specific types of acting classes outside of the general, educational component of college and university training programs. And also on some of these conservatory training schools in New York, for example, that there's a much more well-rounded curriculum. For example, movement and voice and stage techniques and combat and scene study. All of those are part of the overall curriculum that a lot of these places have. But do you really want to do all of those things? Are all of those things there, and do they help you decide who you are as an actor? And does it really help you focus on doing good work? Sometimes you're not aware of what your needs are early on, and that's why those programs, I think, are really beneficial for many, many, many actors. But then there are some that have a very specific idea about what they're looking for. And in that case, it might behoove you to take that very, very specific training of a very, very specific class. For example, why not just take a class on auditioning for film and television pilots? A very specific kind of piece of information, of technique about things to do and not do in an auditioning for a pilot class. So that might be really, really helpful. And so there are people out there who are actually casting film and television pilots. So wouldn't it be cool to take a 3 or 4 session class from somebody who's doing a class on auditioning for a film and television pilot? In the same way, there might be a class for auditioning for independent feature films. So those smaller budget feature films, maybe those more arty films. Maybe there is a director out there who's actually also teaching a class. That might be a really cool way in which you can see what it's like to be in that world. Surround yourself in that environment. So you see, you can shape and define exactly what your needs are by going into the environment and checking out as many of those kinds of classes as you think you need. So again, be wary of those classes that are very club-like, that are very conscientious of paying weird attention to the teacher. I don't know how else to say that. Hopefully you can read between the lines a little bit there and figure out what I'm saying. But know for the most part that there are many classes out there. Now, how do you find out about classes? Well, you know what? There's a thing called the internet, and there's a lot of Google searching you can do about classes in New York or classes in Los Angeles or classes in you name the city, wherever you are. Internationally, if you're close enough to a larger city, find out if there are classes being taught. Maybe there are extension courses at universities in your area as well that might take somebody who come in and just do a one class, one-off deal, one-off situation. It might be really, really helpful for you to do that. Because I love teaching myself personally. Jeff loves teaching. And I've seen so many students who've responded so positively to certain things that I'm teaching, and I'm wondering to myself, you know what? That's really, really great that you responded to the way that you did, that you really got something positive and useful out of it. It should never, ever be a weird mind trip kind of scenario. It should never be a class that leaves you thinking uncomfortable thoughts that maybe this isn't for you, because ultimately it's your time, it's your energy, it's your money, it's your career. So challenge yourself in the best way, do the right work, make sure you've checked out as many classes as you can, and then have a good time with it. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing. I really mean that. I take the work very seriously, but I try not to take myself too seriously in those kind of environments. Because being able to act and have an opportunity to act, especially if you've got a teacher that's positive and reinforcing and nurturing, boy, there can be no better feeling than that. So an acting teacher is not a therapist. It's not a parent. Oftentimes it's not just a teacher either. It's somebody who's there in your corner supporting and getting you to a place that'll only make you a better actor. I've rambled on a lot about this. So if I've rambled on too much, I hope you forgive me, but I hope you really, really take advantage of some really cool classes that are out there. Let me know the kinds of classes that you've signed up for and the kind of classes you've found of great benefit. I'd love to share that with our other listeners on our Podio, our podcast video. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, and this is Casting Actors Cast.
Casting Actors Cast is made possible with your support just by listening. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Caitlin Clark.